vanachari Yamuna tira vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Acharya Ashtotar Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Could I have that 9th canto back? Someone swiped it. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Just trying to see over this. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8. Text 21. 22, okay. That's Kalena Saha Ajaha Purusha Ayusha Abhipravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Swayam Tat Anta Hridaye Avabhatam Apashyata Yat Na Purvam Kalena Soja Purushayushadbi Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Swayam Tadantar Hridaye Vabhatam Apashyata Yanna Purvam Kalena Soja Purushaya Sadbi Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Swayam Tadantar Hridaye Vabhatam Apashyata Yanna Purvam Kalena Soja Purushaya Shabi Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Swayam Tadantar Hridaye Vabhatam Apashyata Yanna Purvam. Thanks. Would anyone like to chant?
Kalena Soja Purushaya Shabi
Kalena Soja Purushaya Shabi Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Swayam Tadantar Hridaye Vabhatam Apashyata Yanna Purvam
Kalena Soja Purushaya Shabi
Yasabi Pravrita Yogena Virudha Bodhaha Hridaya Vabhatam
Apashyata Yanna Purvam
Pashyata Yanna Purvam
Sayushabi
Rshaya Sabi
Pravritta Yogena Virudha Bodha
Ruda Bodha
Taranta Hridayeva Patam
Vavatam
Pashyata Pashyata Yanna Purvam
Pashyata Pashyata Yanna Purvam Kalena Soja Purushaya Sabi Pravritta Yogena Viruda Bodha Swayam Tadanta Hridayeva Bhatam Apashyata Pashyata Yanna Purvam Kalena Soja Purushayushabhi Pravritta Yogena Viruda Bodha Tadanta Hridayeva Bhatam Apashyata Pashyata Yanna Purvam. Matajis? Kalena Soja Purushayushabhi Pravritta Yogena Virudha Bodha Swayam Tadantar Hridayeva Bhatam Pashyata Purvam Kalena in due course of time Saha He Ajaha the self-born Brahma Purusha Ayusha by the duration of his age Abhipravritta being engaged Yogena in meditation Virudha developed Bodha intelligence Swayam automatically Tat Anta Hridaye in the heart Avabhatam manifested Apashyata saw Apashyata did see Yat which Na not Purvam before. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Purport. The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service, and not by one's personal endeavor and mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of Divya years, which are distinct from the solar years of human beings. The Divya years are calculated in Bhagavad Gita 8:17, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Vidhu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, calculated to be 4,300,000 years. On that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes, and then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, and in which he sings, Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. One has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutav Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Prijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Kruna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Dhanavir Goswaminiti Namine, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gaurvani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Pashtata Desatarine. Ataf Shri Krishna Nama Adi, Nabhaved Grayam Indriyai, Sevan Mukhe Hi Jivado, Swayam Eva Sparatyada. So one cannot understand Krishna by the materially contaminated senses. But by engaging in Krishna's service, which begins with the tongue, chanting and taking Krishna prasadam, then Krishna becomes pleased with the devotee and reveals himself to the devotee. So we see that going on here with Lord Brahma. And Srila Prabhupada says that in another way in the first sentence of the purport. So Brahma, we're hearing about the austerity that he went through to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So to get some idea for exactly who we're talking about here, this Lord Brahma, and what just went on, I can read a section of the Bhagavatam and also the Garga Samhita. So one story here at the beginning of the class. But it won't be a story time community hall type of, yeah. Because there's many classes where people just tell stories all the whole time, and then at the end of it, you didn't really catch anything about how to perform Krishna consciousness. It's kind of a side topic, but I think about it a lot because there's a lot of like strange classes and Krishna Katha that we can hear. Especially when we're driving, it's hard to read sometimes. So that's why I'll be reading quite a bit during the class. So hopefully people like to hear from Srila Prabhupada's books. It's very inspiring. But sometimes we're in the car and we'll hear, if you're hearing different things online, see what all the latest Krishna conscious talks are. It's actually really strange because there's a lot of things in there like attractive talks, but without Krishna. So they'll give some idea, some sort of philosophy, and it sounds really nice and very attractive, and you'll think, wow, this guy is really cool. But then you don't hear Krishna ever in the talk. So it's like a lot of all the zeros without the one. So even though they might be like promoted as like this is like the most popular Krishna conscious talks you can listen to, but it's strange because since it's targeted at Western people, that's the whole idea, is you make these talks in like, Google or some fancy place or wherever, and you don't say anything about Krishna, but you give some of the principles that are in the Gita, but in kind of a vague way. But it's targeted at like a Western demographic, which is already plagued by impersonalism, so it seems not productive, because if you're speaking to Westerners who are plagued with impersonalism and you're being vague, then whatever you're saying, they can just take it as something impersonal. Like a lot of the statements that we read in the Vedas, if I didn't hear from Srila Prabhupada, or the message of Srila Prabhupada given by his representatives, then I would think it might be something impersonal, some of the statements that you hear. So it's very easy for someone to do that. So it's strange listening to these things. They're like attractive talks, but then you might think, okay, that sounds like something in relation to Bhagavad Gita, but then also for someone who's practicing Krishna consciousness, you'll feel kind of scared listening to them because it sounds kind of like it could be Mayavad. Like at any second, they'll say, you just, become a better person and this and that, and by the way, we're all God. You feel like they might like, it feels like at any moment they might throw that in there. So if there's not like an explicit description of surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, and you're presenting something to people who are already plagued with impersonalism, and it's easy to just take it as something impersonal. And just one example of this, after I had been in the Bhakta program for some time in Kansas City, I went to visit my family, and I wanted to do like something Krishna conscious with them. So I saw there was like a Swami giving a talk at Google. So I thought, I can play this on the TV, and they'll watch it and they'll be interested because, it's Google and this and that. And then I'll also, be benefited because I can think about, Krishna conscious things. And so we watched it, and it was like that. It wasn't half bad because even though you only hear the name Krishna maybe once in the talk, for someone who's heard from Prabhupada's books, when you're listening to it, you can tie it all into what you've heard from Srila Prabhupada. And it's like, okay, cool. It's better than like listening to my Karmi family talk Prajalpa. But then they're watching it, and so afterward, here's the point of it, is that afterwards they're saying, see, this Swami, who's representing this movement that you're interested in, he's saying that you should get a good job and just care about your family, and, you should stay home and not go back to that bhakta program, and this and that. And I'm like, no, that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying that you should surrender to Krishna and, like, do everything to please Krishna, and that's, like, the whole point. And they thought about it for a second, and they said, no, that's definitely not what he's saying. So it's Shrameva hi Kevalam, at least in that example, at the end, because it's not leading to surrender to Krishna. They're saying it's definitely not surrender to Krishna. You should get a good job, stay home, and like this. So, I'll read a little bit from the Srimad Bhagavatam about Brahma, and it won't be a Hindu community hall story time type of thing. It's actually very interesting. I defined what Hindu storytelling community hall is in a previous class. So, this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me see. Okay, you can pull up Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 3, Text 29. So this will give us some idea of this whole time factor when it comes to Brahma. And because it's kind of a short section, to make this hearing about Brahma a little bit longer, there's also some verses from the Garga Samhita about this same occurrence. So I'll read some of both. So I'll start here with the Garga Samhita because it's a little bit before what happens in that verse. So this is from the Garga Samhita, 6th Canto, Volume 1, Chapter 3, Lord Balaram's Wedding. So it's a few verses. In this way, this is Narada Muni speaking. In this way I have described to you the reason the Lord lives in Dwarka. Now I will tell you everything of the marriages of Krishna and Balaram, the two supreme personalities of Godhead. O King of Mathila, please hear the story of Lord Balaram's wedding, a sacred and transcendental story that removes all sins and increases the span of one's life. A noble-hearted king named Anarta was born in the Surya dynasty, the country of Anartadesh, which was created where there once was only the ocean, filled with terrible sounds, which was created where there once was only the ocean, filled with terrible sounds, which was named after him. The country of Anartadesh was named after him. And the next text, I'm just going to read it in the way that seems most easy to follow since I'm jumping back and forth, if that's okay. His son was the virtuous king Raivata, who ruled the kingdom from his capital Kushastali. And the commentary here. Some Puranas concur that Anarta's son was known as Raivata, also called Raibhya, whereas others, such as Bhagavad Purana, 9th Canto, Vishnu Purana, Varaha Purana, and Harivamsha, state that Anarta's son was Raivata, whose son was Raivata. King Raivata was also known as Kukudmi. So keep that in mind, Raivata and Kukudmi. So Kukudmi is also known as Raivata. That's important for just keeping along as I read it. King Raivata ruled the territory of Anarta and established as his capital the extremely brilliant city Kushastali, later to be known as Dwarka, which ranked among the 7 foremost cities. Okay, and this is the next text. He had 100 sons and 1 daughter. His daughter, who was named Revati, yearned to have a husband that was handsome, lived eternally, and was better than all other men. And the commentary. Found within the description of the race of Manu, Raivata's daughter is described in the Shiva Purana, chapter 36, text 27. A daughter, Revati, was born to Kukudmi. She was endowed with great beauty. She was another Lakshmi. Next text. One day he placed his daughter on a chariot decorated with gold and jewels and wandered the earth to find a proper husband. Purport. It was not easy to fulfill Revati's desire for the best husband who was handsome and not subject to death. Nevertheless, her affectionate father dutifully took her on his chariot and began searching for that one special bridegroom. That attempt was unsuccessful on this planet. Next text. By his mystic power, he traveled to Brahmaloka. His intention to ask for a proper husband for his daughter, he bowed before the demigod Brahma. In the commentary, King Raivata, Kukudmi, also had yogic powers, allowing him to easily travel in space. Thus he set his sights on the highest planet in the universe, Brahmaloka. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 3, text 29. Taking his own daughter, Revati, Kukudmi went to Lord Brahma in Brahmaloka, which is transcendental to the three modes of material nature, and inquired about a husband for her. Purport. It appears that Brahmaloka, the abode of Lord Brahma, is also transcendental, above the three modes of material nature, apavritam. And the next text. When King Kukudmi arrived there, Lord Brahma was engaged in hearing musical performances by the Gandharvas, and had not a moment to talk with him. Therefore Kukudmi waited, and at the end of the musical performances he offered his obeisances to Lord Brahma, and thus submitted his long-standing desire. Okay, Garga Samhita, Canto 6, Chapter 3, Text 8. As the Apsara Purvachitti was singing, he found his opportunity. Aware that now he had Brahma's attention, he spoke what was in his heart. And purport, when the king and his marriageable daughter arrived, a musical dance performance was taking place, and so they had to wait. After some time had passed, Raivata got Brahma's attention. So he can speak to Lord Brahma when this Apsara Purvachitti was singing. It's kind of like when when we're on TSKP and we go to different temples, sometimes they have a Mataji lead the kirtan, and then we take that opportunity to go, if we have to speak with somebody, it's like the perfect opportunity. Yeah, speak with somebody outside. It's a good opportunity to then go and speak with them, or go somewhere and speak to each other about our plans on Sankirtan for that day. Because the brahmacharis aren't supposed to listen to a woman singing. And we don't plan to do that when we're at the temple out of the idea of being extra transcendental or out of ignorance or something like this. If some Mataji is engaged in leading the kirtans and then, maybe having some kirtan group and leading some Krishna conscious concerts and things like that, because of chanting, that person will get purified over time and then realize that this activity actually is not good for me and others, and then do some other service which is more conducive for Krishna consciousness. But if that's the case, then why not teach people from the beginning that the women in the temple shouldn't lead the kirtan, if eventually they're going to realize that actually this isn't so helpful. Like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, curb this enemy of lust from the very beginning, in chapter 3, verse 41. Tasmat tvam indriyan yado niyamya bharatarshaba papmanam prajahi hyenam jnana vigyana nashanam. So somebody might say, what do you mean lust? What lust are you talking about? The singer's lusty, or maybe you're lusty because you're talking about being disturbed when hearing somebody sing. That might be there, but that's not the lust that I'm speaking about. The lust that's the problem here is the lust of the person who's encouraging the women to lead the kirtans and be like the star of the show and the forefront of something. Because if someone's encouraging Matajis to be like the kirtan leader and be more equal and be like the center of the attention, that means that person is lusty. Because why does one do something that they shouldn't do? We see that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 36. Arjuna uvacha atakena prayukto yam papmam charati purushaha anichan apivarshneya balad eva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts even unwillingly as if engaged by force? Why does someone do the wrong thing? Sri Bhagavan uvacha kama esha kroda esha rajaguna samudbhavaha mahashano mahapapma vidyenam ihavarinam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So, like I was saying, it might not be some gross sexual lust that somebody has, but the lust for being liked by all others, and then they want to encourage this kind of activity, even though only Krishna is liked by everyone and his pure devotees. Or a lust for gaining followers. What will people say if I, correct them or discourage something? Or a lust for being some big person, having some big position in society. So that kind of lust is then a problem. So it's better to not encourage wrong behavior just to get along in society or be some great guy. So don't be lusty, but curb it from the beginning by doing the right thing, which is given by Guru, Sadhu, Shastra, and tradition. Aitiha. Should I read it now? Is it a good time? Okay. All right. We have a comment coming in. This just in. Once Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became ecstatic upon hearing the songs of a Devadasi. Unaware of who was singing, he ran toward her through thorny bushes. But when Govinda informed the Lord that it was a woman singing, he immediately stopped. By this incident, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed everyone that sannyasis and Vaishnavas should not hear women singing. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya-lila, chapter 13 summary. So, better to do the right thing, not be lusty. So, continuing about Lord Brahma here. Let me see. I think the page changed. Okay. Sri Raivata, this is continuing in the Garga Samhita. Sri Raivata said, so he's glorifying Lord Brahma. You are the greatest, the oldest, the seed from which this universe has sprouted, the great soul and the great controller. O Brahma, you stay always in your own abode. You create, maintain, and destroy this universe. Purport. Our Devanagari editor points out that if Paramesthye is taken as an adjective of Dhamani, then it translates in the supreme abode. Brahma stays in his supreme abode. These words, Dhamani Paramesthye, were also spoken by Hiranyakashipu when he prayed to Lord Brahma for a benediction. Here are his words. Vyaktam vibho stulam idam shariram yanindriya pranamano gunamstvam bunkshe stito dhamani paramesthye avyakta atma purusha puranaha. O my Lord, being changelessly situated in your own abode, you expand your universal form within this cosmic manifestation, thus appearing to taste the material world. You are Brahman, the super soul, the oldest, the personality of Godhead. That was Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, Text 33. And the next text. O Lord, the Vedas are your mouth, religion is your chest, irreligion is your back. Manu is your intelligence, the demigods are your limbs, the demons are your feet, and this entire creation is your body. This universe is like a small amalaka fruit in your hand. You are like a charioteer driving this universe through the modes of nature. You are like a spider, and this universe is your web. In the future, you will swallow up this entire universe. Purport. This verse parallels one spoken by Sri Narada Muni to his father Brahma as follows. Sarvam hyetad bhavan veda bhuta bhavya bhavat prabhu karamalaka vad vishvam vijnana vasitam tava. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 253. Although you might want to keep it there actually. My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Narada, like Kukudmi, states that Brahma holds the entire universe as if it were a small amalaka fruit, walnut. Next text. The realm of King Indra is under your control, what to speak of the realms of ordinary kings, or the perfections of yoga. You always stay in the highest realm. To you, O Lord of limitless virtue, that's Lord with a lowercase l, I offer my respectful obeisances. You are self-born. You are the grandfather of all in the universe. You are the best of the demigods. You see everything. O Lord, please tell me who should become my daughter's husband, a divine husband that lives forever and has all virtues. Let's see. Purport. Sometimes devotees pray to have a son like the Supreme Lord. Maharaj Nabi is an example of a father praying for a son like the Lord. But since there is no one like the Supreme Person may agree to become the devotee's son himself, as in the case of Vasudeva and Devaki. Indirectly, King Raivata asked Brahma to help him arrange for the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become his son-in-law, because who else lives forever in the same body and surpasses all else in virtues? The great sage Parashara Muni defines Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as one who is full in 6 opulences, who has full strength, fame, wealth, knowledge, beauty, and renunciation. Vishnu Purana 6.5.47. Aishvaryasya samagrasya viryasya yashashashriyaha jnana vairagyayos-chaiva sanambhaga itingana. Lord Brahma was a perfect person. Lord Brahma was a perfect person to fulfill Revati's cherished desire. Sri Narada said, O king of Maithila, when he heard these words, self-born Brahma, who sees everything, smiled and spoke to King Raivata. Sri Brahma said, O king, a moment in this realm of Brahmaloka is equal to 4 yugas on the earth. Purport. Another reading for the Sanskrit word Tri Nava Chatur Yuga Vikalpita is 27 Chatur Yugas. Tri means 3 and Nava means 9. Sometimes in the Vedas, a number is described as its constituents, i.e. 3 times 9. The waiting period was only a mahorta, a bit less than an hour, in Brahma's region, but back on earth many ages had passed due to the difference in time. He did not calculate that an hour spent in Brahma's planet equals 27 Chatur Yugas, approximately 116 million years on earth. And continuing Brahma speaking, your children, grandchildren, and other relatives are no longer on the earth. We do not hear anything of the descendants of your children, grandchildren, or great-grandchildren. The dynasty no longer exists. So now Srimad Bhagavatam 9.3.31 here. After hearing his words, Lord Brahma, who is most powerful, laughed loudly and said to Kukudmi, O king, all those whom you may have decided within the core of your heart to accept as your son-in-law have passed away in the course of time. 27 Chatur Yugas have already passed. Those upon whom you may have decided are now gone, and so are their sons, grandsons, and other descendants. You cannot even hear about their names. Purport. During Lord Brahma's day, 14 Manus or 1,000 Mahayugas pass away. Brahma informed King Kukudmi that 27 Mahayugas, each consisting of the 4 periods, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, had already passed. All the kings and other great personalities born in those yugas had now departed from memory into obscurity. This is the way of time as it moves through past, present, and future. Next text. O king, leave here and offer your daughter to Lord Baladev, who is still present. He is most powerful indeed. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose plenary portion is Lord Vishnu. Your daughter is fit to be given to him in charity. Oh, there was, okay, yeah. Lord Baladev is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who hears and chants about him is purified. Because he is always the well-wisher of all living entities, he has descended with all his paraphernalia to purify the entire world and lessen its burden. Having received this order from Lord Brahma, Kukudmi offered obeisances unto him and returned to his own residence. He then saw that his residence was vacant, having been abandoned by his brothers and other relatives, who were living in all directions because of fear of such higher living beings as the yakshas. Thereafter, the king gave his most beautiful daughter in charity to the supremely powerful Baladev, and then retired from worldly life and went to Badrik ashram to please Nara-Narayana. So, time works differently where Brahma is. He has such a great lifespan. And he went through these austerities that we're hearing here in order to realize the Lord, which is amazing. Because he went through 100 years of meditation, which is an extremely long time. So the thing that really stood out to me about Brahma here is that he has this Vaishnava quality, especially in this circumstance, of patience, which we also hear some about in the purport, towards the end of the purport. So many people might have many definitions of patience. When I was taking some notes for the class, I looked up the word patience just to put I was keeping some tabs of verses, and I wanted one of them just to say patience, so I remembered to talk about it. And when I looked it up, there's all of these sayings people have about patience, and for some reason, a lot of them have something to do with God. So we know that is one of the qualities of a devotee, and that is something that's helpful for devotional service. But I'm not so interested in hearing what the karmis define patience as. We can hear one of them, and then we'll hear. It's better to have our definitions from Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, so we can hear what Rupa Goswami defines patience as in the Nectar of Instruction, and then also what Srila Prabhupada defines patience as in the Bhagavad Gita. But here's one thing that was just online. Patience is not just the ability to wait. It's the unwavering trust in God's perfect timing. It's not half bad. But if I'm going to speak about the qualities of a devotee, there's so much potential to just go into one of these whole gimme some classes that I was speaking of earlier. Gimme some is a word that we use here sarcastically, which means it's good when it's not. Because we hear so many of these things, they'll have a whole class about patience and having faith that you'll get the sense gratification you need is ultimately the way that people take it at the end of the whole class, or the sense gratification you think you need. So here we can hear about the quality of patience according to Shastra. This is Srimad, or let me see. Sorry, I'm scrolling. Okay, Nectar of Instruction, text 3. Utsahan nischayat daryat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat sato vrite shadbir bhaktif prasidhyati. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service. 1, being enthusiastic. 2, endeavoring with confidence. 3, being patient, like Lord Brahma in this circumstance here. 4, acting according to the regulative principles, such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna. 5, abandoning the association of non-devotees. And 6, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. Now, if you scroll down in the purport, we can hear a little bit more about this patience. It starts with, these activities must be executed with patience. One should not be impatient in Krishna consciousness. Indeed, this Krishna consciousness movement was started single-handedly, and in the beginning there was no response. But because we continued to execute our devotional activities with patience, people gradually began to understand the importance of this movement, and now they are eagerly participating. One should not be impatient in discharging devotional service, but should take instructions from the spiritual master and execute them with patience. So if someone is concocting something and making some weird process or weird behaviors and activities, then we can understand that they're not patient, they're impatient. Because we see here that one should not be impatient in discharging devotional service, but should take instructions from the spiritual master and execute them with patience. Depending on the mercy of Guru and Krishna, the successful execution of Krishna-conscious activities requires both patience and confidence. A newly married girl naturally expects offspring from her husband, but she cannot expect to have them immediately after marriage. Of course, as soon as she is married, she can attempt to get a child, but she must surrender to her husband, confident that her child will develop and be born in due time. Similarly, in devotional service, surrender means that one has to become confident. The devotee thinks, Avashya Rakshibe Krishna. Krishna will surely protect me and give me help for the successful execution of devotional service. This is called confidence. So we can see it's so important, and not just important to hear about, but it's important to cultivate these qualities of a devotee. I was hearing recently in a lecture from His Holiness Bhaktivinoda Swami that he was saying that he finds it hard to see or rarely sees devotees who are seriously trying to cultivate the qualities of a devotee. They might do so many other things, but what about these qualities that devotees are supposed to have, and these Brahminical qualities that are spoken of throughout what we're reading in Bhagavad Gita, Nectar of Instruction, all of the books. So there's another section which is really helpful for understanding definitions properly instead of taking karmi definitions and getting a whole bunch of nice sayings together that sound nice from like the internet or something, which it sounds like some of the gimme some talks do. So that text where we can get some good definitions for actually what are these favorable qualities is in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 8 through 12. These are the qualities of a devotee. And I'll read in the purport, but Srila Prabhupada explains that this is the test. We should actually regularly test ourselves to see if we are cultivating these qualities or not, which is it's a big deal in our devotional service. So I'm speaking about it so that hopefully I can begin to even think of cultivating these qualities. For me, this is like a uncharted sphere of life, uncharted territory. This is like going to the moon, so I can say that I did it and show some rocks or something. But honestly, it's just like the actual so-called moon landing. For me, this is uncharted territory. So here we go in the translation: humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So I'll read some of the purport. I'm just scrolling. I'll read that part about this being our test. But we also see in the purport steadiness, which is, you can compare that to patience. Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. Let's see.
Is it one of the paragraphs down?
Yeah, I scrolled down a little bit.
You just go through every topic. Okay, got it.
Let me see. Here, I'll just read this part about the test that's in here. Because this way we can understand that it's important that we actually cultivate these things, like patience, enthusiasm, and then also all of these qualities that are just spoken of here by Krishna. So if you... Sorry, it's a long purport. I don't know how you'll find it, but if you search the word test, it pops up. Anyways, it's at the bottom of one of the paragraphs. So we see, as for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. So we're supposed to cultivate these. So a little bit more about Brahma having these qualities, specifically this quality of patience. So this is Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 34, where Krishna describes his quality of patience. Why not hear his definition? If we're going to talk about cultivating different qualities and all of these things, why not hear Krishna's definition of them instead of just pretending to be a cool guy and giving some cool definition of it and then never saying anything about Krishna the whole time. So Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 text 34, Mrityu sarva haras chaham ubavash cha bhavishyatam kirti shrir vak cha narinam smritir medha duti kshama. I am all-devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Among women I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. And the second paragraph of the purport. The 7 opulences listed, fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience, are considered feminine. If a person possesses all of them, or some of them, he becomes glorious. If a man is famous as a righteous man, that makes him glorious. Sanskrit is a perfect language and is therefore very glorious. That's ecstatic. So here, that's Krishna's speaking about patience. Okay, so one other verse that really stands out from the purport is we're hearing how Brahma went through all of this 100-year meditation, which is actually an unthinkable amount of time because he's Lord Brahma. And Srila Prabhupada describes in the purport that one has to wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render service unto him or know him as he is. So by endeavoring with these qualities of a devotee, Brahma eventually actually sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He develops knowledge of him, and he actually sees him. So this is a very famous verse, and it's very ecstatic for understanding how to perform devotional service in a similar way that we see Brahma successfully performed it. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8. Tate nukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagva purbir vidadam namaste jiveta yomukti pade sadaya bhak. My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. We recently saw Rsi-Kumar Prabhu, and he had some severe pain in his leg that was so bad that he couldn't move. But the whole time that it was really paining him so much, he would, make some sound calling out in pain. But the whole time, he was so Krishna conscious, and he's speaking about this verse here, that he was saying, okay, this must be, how much terrible activities did I do in my past, He said, I knew I've done so many dumb things in this lifetime. What to speak of past lifetimes? I don't even know what I did then. And Krishna is just giving me a small token of it, just so I can understand, this place is not the place to be, this material world. And so I can give up this, whatever mentality led me to do, whatever bad ideas I had in the past. So he was speaking like this the whole time, and I was thinking how great it would be to actually have these qualities of a devotee and be able to think like that when there's some pain or frustration. Instead, I'll just get angry and frustrated and complain about it. But he's saying all these, the absolute truth, which is helpful for everyone around him to hear, and helpful for himself also. So I'll read the purport to that verse. Srila Sridhar Swami explains in his commentary that just as a legitimate son has to simply remain alive to gain an inheritance from his father, one who simply remains alive in Krishna consciousness, following the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga, automatically becomes eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. One thing that stands out there is Srila Prabhupada says, remain alive. He gives also the definition of remaining alive, that following the principles of Bhakti Yoga. So, I don't know, there's a weird idea I've heard that, Srila Prabhupada is so merciful, and he's just going to bring us, there's maybe some quote about him bringing people through the back door of Vaikuntha, but it doesn't mean that you don't follow the practice of Krishna consciousness and that you go back to Godhead. But we hear that remaining alive in Krishna consciousness, on the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, it means that you actually follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga. And then automatically one can become eligible to receive the mercy of the personality of Godhead. Not just, engage in sense gratification my whole life, and then say Jai Prabhupada or something at the end. The word Su-samikshamana indicates that a devotee earnestly awaits the mercy of the Supreme Lord, even while suffering the painful effects of previous sinful activities. Lord Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee who fully surrenders unto him is no longer liable to suffer the reactions of his past karma. However, because in his mind a devotee may still maintain the remnants of his previous sinful mentality, the Lord removes the last vestiges of the enjoying spirit by giving his devotee punishments that may sometimes resemble sinful reactions. The purpose of the entire creation of God is to rectify the living entity's tendency to enjoy without the Lord, and therefore the particular punishment given for a sinful activity is specifically designed to curtail the mentality that produced the activity. Okay, I'm at the time where we are supposed to do questions. So I just want to read one more verse because it's oh, till 8:40? Okay. Let's see. Then I'll continue that purport. Although a devotee has surrendered to the Lord's devotional service until he is completely perfect in Krishna consciousness, he may maintain a slight inclination to enjoy the false happiness of this world. The Lord therefore creates a particular situation to eradicate this remaining enjoying spirit. This unhappiness suffered by a sincere devotee is not technically a karmic reaction. It is rather the Lord's special mercy for inducing his devotee to completely let go of the material world and return home back to Godhead. A sincere devotee earnestly desires to go back to the Lord's abode. Therefore, he willingly accepts the Lord's merciful punishment and continues offering respects and obeisances to the Lord within his heart, with his heart, words, and body. Such a bona fide servant of the Lord, considering all hardship a small price to pay for gaining the personal association of the Lord, certainly becomes a legitimate son of God, as indicated here by the words Daya Bak. Just as one cannot approach the sun without becoming fire, one cannot approach the supreme pure Lord Krishna without undergoing a rigid purificatory process, which may appear like suffering, but which is in fact a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord. So we're hearing how Brahma, he went through this process and he was able to then see the Lord. So that seeing the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 4. The devotees with their perfect eyes see the transcendental form of the Purusha, who has thousands of legs, thighs, arms, and faces, all extraordinary. In that body there are thousands of heads, ears, eyes, and noses. They are decorated with thousands of helmets and glowing earrings, and are adorned with garlands. Okay. There's a little bit more about patience that I had noted, but I'll just skip ahead to, there's a, we hear that Lord Brahma, he's seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead not because of his mental speculation or because of using a microscope or a telescope or a stethoscope, but he is seeing the Lord because he has the eyes tinged with the salve of love of God. This is Brahma Samhita 538. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundaram achintya gunasvarupam govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord who is Shama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. So, and you can, if you go to the purport, the Shama Sundara form of Krishna is his inconceivable, simultaneous, personal and impersonal, self-contradictory form. This is really important to hear attentively, because this is like the full situation right here of what's happening with Lord Brahma, and it's ecstatic. True devotees see that form in their purified hearts under the influence of devotional trance. The form of Shama is not the blue color visible in the mundane world, but is the transcendental, variegated color affording eternal bliss and is not visible to the mortal eye. On a consideration of the trance of Vyasadeva, as in the shloka Bhakti Yogena Manasi, etc., Srimad Bhagavatam 174, it will be clear that the form of Sri Krishna is the full personality of Godhead and can only be visible in the heart of a true devotee, which is the only true seat in the state of trance under the influence of devotion. When Krishna manifested himself in Vraja, both the devotees and non-devotees saw him with this very eye, but only the devotees cherished him, eternally present in Vraja, as the priceless jewel of their heart. Nowadays also the devotees see him in Vraja in their hearts, saturated with devotion, although they do not see him with their eyes. The eye of devotion is nothing but the eye of the pure unalloyed spiritual self of the jiva. The form of Krishna is visible to that eye in proportion to its purification by the practice of devotion. When the devotion of the neophyte reaches the stage of bhava bhakti, the pure eye of that devotee is tinged with the salve of love by the grace of Krishna, which enables him to see Krishna face to face. The phrase "in their hearts" means Krishna is visible in proportion as their hearts are purified by the practice of devotion. The sum and substance of this shloka is that the form of Krishna, who is Shyamasundara, Natavar, best dancer, Muralidhar, holder of the flute, and Tribhanga, triple bending, is not a mental concoction, but is transcendental and is visible with the eye of the soul of the devotee under trance. So that's what's happening, and when we hear from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, we see he speaks in such a detailed and intricate way. That's how he speaks. And one reason or one effect of that is that the idea of pure devotional service can't be misconstrued when you're hearing from him. It's so specific. So that's one reason why it's important not to just give some vague talk about so-called qualities in the mind and this and that in a vague way, because then people can misconstrue it. But we see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gives it so specifically. So those are some things about Lord Brahma and his quality of patience. Is there any comments, questions, chastisements? Yes, Mahotsav Prabhu.
Prabhu, you told us you'll tell us what a Hindu storytelling community hall is.
No, I said I defined it in a previous class.
Oh.
But do you want a definition?
It's up to you.
Okay, yeah, Hindu storytelling community hall is when there's a temple and people come to the temple and everyone arrives for class and the speaker sits down to tell the class, and then they tell you so many stories for the whole class. And you don't hear so much actually about like how to engage in Krishna consciousness. Or the thing is, it's a story time community hall when after the class you're thinking, wow, like I still have all my anarthas and desire to enjoy the material world. In fact, maybe even a little more now. So, and it's nice we can hear things from the Bhagavatam and they're very helpful. But also we see throughout the Bhagavatam, there's a whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness given. And it's not just stories, but the effect is purifying, because we hear that we shouldn't just use our whole life for sense gratification, like the hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. They'll skip those kind of verses and just, say some nice story. Or, also it's not so much stories about the Bhagavatam, but I gave the example of one where there's a nice story. If you want, I can tell one of the stories. Okay. So it's like this. You go into the class, and then you hear about this devotee, and there was one devotee who fell away from Krishna consciousness, and he was in India practicing, and then he went to America because he wanted to enjoy the best sense gratification. So I don't know who originally told this story, so maybe it's like someone who's fired up, I don't know, but the person who I heard telling it speaking it wasn't very fired up. So this devotee, he's looking for sense gratification, so he goes to New York, And he asks someone there, where can I get the best sense gratification? And they tell him, oh, you have to go to California. So he goes to California and says, where can I get the best sense gratification? And this person tells him, oh, you'll have to go to Los Angeles. And then he asks someone there, I'm looking for sense gratification. Where can I get the best sense gratification? So I really doubt that these stories are real, because it sounds like I don't know anyone who talks like that. But so then they tell him you have to go to this address, and he goes there. And when he arrives at this address for his sense gratification, he arrived at Govinda's. And then everyone in the class goes, oh, Haribo, oh, so nice, Prabhuji. And so you just hear that story and other like variants of that kind of story, whole class, and then at the end of it, everyone takes some prasadam cooked by someone who's, following a few of the regulative principles. Chant when I can, staunch brahmachari, and then everyone goes home. So it's like, where was the preaching of the absolute truth, setting aside all other things? Where did that happen? But there were some nice stories. So that's a Hindu storytelling community center.
Thank you for that, Prabhu. So, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said that he wants to take another birth. He wants to appear again in this material world to simply write a dictionary defining all the words that he used. Because it's so important for us to actually understand what the words mean. Mm-hmm. And we can see so many words have now been hijacked by the English, like guru, like he's a computer science guru, or he's a guitar guru, or he's this guru. But what does a guru mean? Guru means one who removes the darkness of ignorance. That's what guru means. So many words like that have been hijacked. And you can see the Mayavadis, they also use the word bhakti, They hijacked the word bhakti for so long that Prabhupada, they always translate bhakti as devotion. And then we can see that, if you're speaking of someone who's giving a Google talk or something, and people like that, they say, bhakti is to love others like you love yourself. Or something, I can't do the, bhav that well, but they say some nonsense like that. But Prabhupada helped us understand bhakti means devotional service. For example, the word Vedanta has been completely hijacked by the Mayavadis. People think if you say Vedanta, that means impersonalism. No, but it's not. Vedanta is what Vyasadeva wrote, and the right understanding of the Vedantas was in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But so many words have been hijacked by the karmis and the non-devotees. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to reappear, not to write, just give a dictionary explaining what every word means.
That's really nice. Is there any other comment, question? Yes, Prabhu?
Yeah, I was just wondering. Is this on? Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, I was just wondering about the definition. 'Cause probably wasn't there when you defined Hindu storytelling community hall. Because one thing I was thinking about is that even if someone just speaks like pastimes of Krishna and like the pure devotees, without going so deep into like the philosophy, that's still purifying. But is this more like they just kind of come up with these like uru stories that are just like not directly Krishna Katha? Is that what you're pointing at?
Yeah, hearing about Krishna is purifying, but when we're hearing about Krishna, we see the philosophy is also presented there. And it's not presented in a vague way where you can hear about Krishna and still maintain so many misconceptions. Like this point about the dictionary, a dictionary that's actually based on the absolute truth. It's not that, you present this whole thing about Krishna. Because, like this one person, he wanted to make a movie about the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and Srila Prabhupada was bashing the idea, aggressively. But then one of the, you could say like a concession Srila Prabhupada gave after really, verbally or philosophically giving the sauce and smacking this person around. He tells him, if he wants to make a movie on the 10th canto, or if he wants to make a movie on, Krishna, then he has to make a movie on the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Srimad Bhagavatam, it's presented systematically so that one gets the proper conception, or you could say the proper definition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But if one just jumps right to the 10th canto, then they'll misconstrue Krishna's pastimes, such as his amorous pastimes with the gopis, to be like something of their mundane, so-called amorous, so-called pastimes with some other mundane woman. There's an example given in a purport from Srila Prabhupada that they might hear these topics about Srimati Radharani. Like so many people come up to us at the Uru. Uru means like, oh, it's so sweet. At the Uru, story time, party hall. They come up to us when we're distributing books that will actually help them in their Krishna consciousness. And they're saying, Prabhu, do you have Radharani book? So many people, I don't know what that book is. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not, I don't know. I haven't seen it. But so many people are running up to us saying, Prabhu, you're giving Radharani book? And we're, no, who told you that? Like 5 people. But you have Radharani book? So they're saying all this, but Srila Prabhupada says in one of the purports, I don't remember exactly where, but if one doesn't go through the rest of the Srimad Bhagavatam and understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness and who is the supreme controller, then when they hear about Radha, they'll remember some mundane woman named Radha, like an ex-girlfriend in the same name, with the same name, and then they'll be contaminated. So in that way, it's not helpful to jump to the 10th canto. And just one other example, because this one's really ecstatic. There's a GBC article about Narayan Maharaj. This article is actually pretty cool because there's there's like a GBC rule there that says the devotees must be fired up for book distribution. So hey, it's a rule. I'll pull up the article later, but it's fired up. So in this article talking about Narayan Maharaj, the writer mentions how there was one Swami giving a talk in Vrindavan, and he had a goatee, and someone is sitting in the audience, and this Swami is talking about, Radharani this and Radha that, and this person in the audience starts crying, and he says, yes, she has attained bhava, and she comes up to him afterwards, and he wants to hear about the ecstatic feelings that she is feeling, hearing his so nectarian katha. And she explains that her goat, Radha, had died last week. And the goat had a very similar goatee to the Swami. And when he's speaking about Radha and she's seeing the goatee, it's awakening this bhav for Radha the goat. So, like this, people, they presented it as I think it was a true story. That's how they presented it, as it sounds legitimate to me. So, that's why one goes through the rest of the Bhagavatam, 9 whole cantos. Look at all that. Just before they get to the 10th canto, where they're hearing directly about Krishna. That way they don't get the wrong idea.
Okay. Just one consideration, though, is that we distribute Krishna book to people. Prabhupada also translated the Krishna book. Obviously, I guess kind of protected because it's surrounded by Prabhupada's the whole thing is just a Bhaktivedanta purport.
Yeah, try to read the Krishna book for sense gratification. Some devotees, some devotees fall away from Krishna consciousness due to being attracted to women, even some brahmacharis, and they'll try to preach to. It starts sometimes with them trying to preach to them. So they'll have a Zoom class, or I don't know, they'll have some sort of class and want to read with the Matajis. But as brahmachari, you're not allowed to do this. As someone in a renounced order of life, they can't associate with women. If you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's stated everywhere. But anyways, they want to, and for sense gratification. But try to read the Krishna book for sense gratification. In the very first chapter, you're just reading it's Krishna and the demigods and this and that, and there's tons of philosophy, so it's, you're getting the point. But after a few pages, then Srila Prabhupada says, and therefore, the learned scholar, Chanakya Pandit, says one should not trust a woman or a politician. And so if you're trying to read the Krishna book in some sort of sense gratification situation, immediately it's ruined. So I remember that specifically because I wanted to show that book to my family, and I was reading it to my grandma. And then after I read that part, I had to explain it. And then you explain just the real philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And she was cool with it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. That the whole principle of Hindu storytelling community hall is giving stories without a proper philosophical conception. And that's like the primary point. Even in like pastimes, one should understand or be guided towards the absolute truth. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Is there any other comment or question? Anyone? Okay. Mataji? I wanted to find this one. There was one. Because it's concerning when there's these vague presentations, and they're intentionally vague, because I guess the idea is, if demons hear about Krishna, then they won't want to come and hear, which is true. Demons don't like Krishna. That's why there's a material world. Well, actually, some of the demons do. But, so that's why there's the material world. Wasn't Mayadanava a demon?
Yeah, he was, right?
He made that whole assembly hall. That's Krishna's assembly hall. But anyway, that's why the whole material world is there, because people are envious of Krishna. So if one is actually presenting Krishna consciousness and trying to engage in pure devotional service, then the natural effect of that is that there will be problems and there will be confrontation. There will be persons like hogs and dogs who try to impede the service of the devotee. So if one just wants to get along nicely with the demons, then they don't speak about Krishna. So yeah, these talks, they're very vague and they don't mention Krishna. But then there's you can hear it and it really sounds suspicious of Mayavad. It feels like any second it's going to come up. And I wanted to pull up, I saw one of these, because a lot of these people, they like to put cute quotes. And the quotes are very cute. But one of them was really close to Mayavad. He was more or less saying, in the spiritual scriptures, they explain that in the wisdom text, it explains that this world is unreal.
Oh my God.
But the thing is that in Prabhupada's books, you have the purport then, because there are even the verses of the Vedas, you can misconstrue it to be impersonal. Yeah. But then there's the whole understanding that's given. And that understanding is what makes it effective. That's why Krishna says, therefore, the understanding as it is appears to be lost. So he speaks it again to Arjuna. So that's why there's the whole purport and everything that gives the understanding. Then we can see, okay, yes, it's unreal in the sense that it's temporary. Nothing here in this material world is going to last. So it's not of, value in that way. But it's also coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so it can be engaged in His service. So like that. But if you just leave it at something, if you make the Vedas vague, and people are already interested in forgetting Krishna, then they'll use it as a way to be impersonal and forget Krishna. Yes, Navani Hoda Prabhu. And just one more, just a concluding statement on that. Then there is a whole vague movie about Krishna consciousness that one leading devotee of the movement told me I should play in the temple for the brahmacharis to watch in the temple. And it's very vague, and a lot of it is also very mundane. And some of it is also extremely sensual. But I should play it for the brahmacharis. Yeah, in the temple. But then, 2/3 of the way through it, the whole movie, there's many doctors and PhDs, and they're just, most of them are just karmis. But I guess that makes it more credible, which that makes sense. It looks credible to karmis because there's PhD karmis speaking. But one of the karmis just gives straightforward, unalloyed Mayavad, setting aside all other things, right in the middle of this movie. So therefore, I don't think the vague kind of preaching of Krishna consciousness works, because it turns into Mayavad. Okay, Navani Horu.
Just a comment as far as what you were talking about, the story time. It's like Hindi story time, Bob. But it's not that as Vaishnavas we're against hearing stories, because His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj has a series of lectures on the Damodar Leela. Mm-hmm. And it's not we can't listen to this, it's only stories. But I remember reading in the purport that Prabhupada said that for those who are at advanced stage, they can sit and talk about Krishna's pastimes and relish it. But for those who are on a lower stage, if they just did that all day, then they wouldn't actually come to a higher platform. It's actually better for them to understand the intricacies as far as the workings of material nature. But it's not that we're against listening to stories. It's just that for advanced devotees, they're able to do that. They're able to do chant and hear all day. But for us, we do that, and it's like hard for us to even follow. We start, like you made a good point, that we start having our own misconceptions when we're listening to the stories. But for advanced devotees, they are encouraged to do that. But for neophytes, it's better encouraged to understand the workings of material nature. So.
Thank you for adding that helpful and needed balance to what I was saying.
An important point too is that Srila Prabhupada, he also spoke stories. All these. We speak. The whole point is to hear the pastimes of Krishna, but we hear the pastimes of Krishna the way our acharyas taught us. We can see Srila Prabhupada, for example, you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Have you read the Chaitanya Charitamrita? It's so much esoteric stuff there. Have you read the teachings of Lord Chaitanya? There's so much esoteric stuff in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But you can see there's a perfect balance of it. How much of it is explaining tattva, helping us understand we're not our body and all these things. And then when that point is established, then Prabhupada reveals some really esoteric pastimes of Radha and Krishna as intimate conjugal pastimes in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. But you see the way Prabhupada did it. But unfortunately, without going to the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you just go to the 10th canto, not even the 10th canto, you just go to those 5 chapters, to chapter 28 to chapter 32, speaking of the Ras Leela, you're completely bogus. And that's the whole point. People want to enjoy the Bhagavatam, but not serve the Bhagavatam. And that's the whole point of Hindu storytelling community hall, that they just make you enjoy Krishna, enjoy stories about Krishna or whatever, but they don't develop the sincere urge to hear about Krishna in such a way that you can increase your attitude of devotion, attitude of service towards him. That's the point.
Try.
I get the mic drop.
Mic drop.
On its own.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
One check up with